Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. In this lesson, we're going to officially learn about composition of functions. But first, let's review what we have learned in the last lesson. For our knowledge, f of x equals negative 4x plus 3, and you are asked to find f of negative x and f of 3x minus 2. First, f of negative x. That means wherever you see x, you're going to be replacing it with a negative x. So with negative 4 in the front, multiply with a negative x now, plus 3. Negative 4 times negative x becomes a positive 4x plus 3. Next, f of 3x minus 2. That means anywhere you see x, you're going to replace it with a 3x minus 2. So negative 4 stays in the front. You still have the plus 3 on the end. And since we're multiplying, we need to distribute. Negative 4 times 3x is a negative 12x. Negative 4 times negative 2 is a positive 8. Then a plus 3 on the end. So we have negative 12x plus 11. That's what we have learned in the last lesson. Moving on. In this lesson, we're going to explore a new form of plug-in or substitution. Official name is composition of functions. Composing functions means putting one function inside another function, like putting stuffing in a turkey. Or in other words, substitute x with another function. So in the previous lesson, you have already done that. For now, that 3x minus 2 is going to be given in the form of another function, which makes things look a bit more complicated. So, for example, f of g of x. So in the previous lesson, what we have worked with was things like f of negative x or f of 3x minus 2 that you just did. Well, basically now, instead of telling you, hey, it's going to be negative x in there, it's going to tell you g of x is negative x, or it's going to tell you g of x is 3x minus 2, and then you need to actually do that extra step to put it in there. But then we do exactly what we have learned in the previous lesson. So it's a new notation. Here, f of g of x is the composite function of f of x and g of x. It's read as f of g of x. So anytime you see parentheses, it's going to be read as of. We typically write it as using the notation f with a little circle, g, and then x outside. Just like instead of writing the f of x plus g of x, we actually put the x on the end and put f plus or minus g, or even multiplying in the first parentheses. So the operation is already just between the f and the g. So same thing here. This little symbol represents composition. The function g of x is called the inner function, and the function f of x is called the outer function. So it means to substitute x with function g of x inside f of x. So f of x is going to be our main function, but anytime we see x, we're going to replace that with g of x. So now let's define a bit more based on what we just filled out. Try to fill out the next paragraph. Okay, so now on the contrary, we could also have g of f of x. That would be the composite function of g of x and f of x, and again is read as g of f of x. We could also write it as p with a little circle symbol and then f of x. The function f of x is the inner function. The function g of x is the outer function. It means substitute x with function f of x inside the function g of x. So g of x is going to be our main function. And in this g of x, anywhere you see x, you're going to replace it with f of x. So based on this definition, we actually have quite a few different setups. So we can have that. That means the main function, again, is the main function is always the one in the front. The main function is f, and you're replacing wherever you see x with g of x. Okay, we can also have the g in the front. Okay, so again, that means g is our main function. Anywhere you see x, you're going to replace it with f of x. And then we can even have f of x. So f, yes, is the main function, but anywhere you see x, you still need to replace the x with f of x. And then lastly, of course, we can have g of x. So that means g is the main function. Anywhere you see x, you're going to replace x with g again. Okay. In short, we're going to call them fog, goff, foff, and gog. There you go. Moving on. To compose functions, we first substitute the variable that is in the outer function with the whole inner function, and then we simplify. Make sure to always use the parentheses. Now let's see some examples. Okay, example 1. Things is gonna get a bit more complicated. So f of g of x, so five. My suggestion is always write it as an extra step is f of g of x so that you know which function you're keeping the main setup as. So in this case, again, the main function is our f of x. So we're gonna focus on f of x. We're gonna copy down the setup, it's just not the x. So it's -3, then times something, and then minus a 2. And then we are going to do the substitution. So anywhere we see the x is now being replaced with g of x, which is -3x plus 18. In fact, it's even better for you to write one more step. So f stays, but the g of x is -3x plus 18. So now this just becomes what we have done in the previous lesson. So f is your function, you're going to replace x with -3x plus 18. That's -3 times -3x is a positive 9x. -3 times 18 is a -54, and minus 2 on the end. So 9x minus 56. There you go. Moving on. Next, let's do more. Golf. So that means it's g of f of x. So let's write the extra step. Keep the g. You're going to replace f of x with exactly what it is. It is -3x minus 2. And now you're just doing what you have done in the previous lesson. You're going to focus on g of x, and anywhere you see x, you're going to replace it with -3x minus 2. Use -3, then replace the x as -3x minus 2. Then a plus 18 on the end. Simplify. That's a 9x minus 6 plus 18, which is a 9x plus 12. There you go. You can pause here and try to do the next two, FOV and GOG. Let's have a look. FOV. So it's f of x. I'm always replacing the inner one, so I'm keeping the f on the outside. But this, I know what f of x is. It is -3x minus 2. Okay, then I'm going to focus on -3x minus 2, and wherever I see x, since the main function is still f, that's why I'm focusing on -3x minus 2. And where I see x, I'm going to replace that x with a -3x minus 2. So the -3 stays, the x is being replaced with -3x minus 2, and then a minus 2 on the end. So we have 9x plus 6 minus 2, which is a 9x plus. Moving on, God. So that is g of x. So you're going to do my g of x is -3x plus 18. So now again, I'm just dealing with what we have learned in the previous lesson. I'm going to focus on g since that's my function now. But anywhere I see x, I'm going to replace it with -3x plus 18. So as -3 stays, the x is being replaced as -3x plus 18, and then a plus 18 on the end. So we'll have a 9x minus a 54 plus 18 simplifies to be 9x minus 36. There you go. That's example 1. Now that you have done one, it's time for you to pause and try example 2. Let's have a look. Try not to skip any work so that everything is just clearer for you. So it's f of g of x, and I can rewrite the g of x, so it becomes f of 5x plus 4. That means I can focus on my main function, which is f, and that looks like -4 times the x is going to be replaced as 5x plus 4, then a plus 3 on the end. So that is going to become -20x minus 16 plus 3 simplified to be -20x minus 13. Moving on. This time is f. So it's g of f of x. Keep the g. The f of x I already know. It is -4x plus 3. But this time, my main function is g, so right here. I'm going to copy down the 5. Wherever I see x, I'm replacing it with a -4x plus 3 with a plus 4 on the end. So we got -20x plus 15 plus 4 simplifies to be negative 20x plus 19. Next, fog. So it's f of x. Keeping the outside, I know f of x, I replace it with negative 4x plus 3. And now, since my main function is f, I'm going to need to focus on f. It's negative 4 times, wherever I see x, I'm replacing it with a negative 4x plus 3. And don't forget the plus 3 on the end. So we got a 16x minus 12 plus 3, simplifies to be 16x minus 9. There you go. And lastly, fog. G of x. G on the outside stays. I already know g of x is 5x plus 4. My main function is g, so I'm going to focus on g. And that is going to be 5. I see x. X is going to be replaced with a 5x plus 4. Then don't forget the plus 4 on the end. Simplify 25x plus 20 plus 4. So 25x plus 24. And now you can see all of them are going to give you something different. You have a negative 20x, even though they are both negative 20x, one is a negative 13, the other plus 19. You have a 6x and a 25x. They're actually all different. So you may have noticed that fog and golf would typically give us two completely different answers. That shows that the order is very important. So make sure you're actually composing the function in the order the question asks you. Or in other words, pay attention to which is the turkey and which is the stuffing. Which is why that extra step of writing the, after you finish writing this, like f of g of x, that extra step to replace the g of x is more important so that you can just focus on one thing at a time. So we start with the stuffing first, replace it, and then we look at the whole turkey. There you go. Now the last example, things get a bit more complicated. Let's have a look. So in this question, fog is actually the most complicated one. You will be able to tell that in the future, but for now, let's actually deal with the other three first, and now leave fog at the very end. So let's start with golf. Oh, I actually take it back. Fog and golf are both going to be complicated because f is your main function, and that is where the square is. So I'm going to actually do the other two. I'm going to do golf and gog first. So golf. I'm going to g of f of x. So I'm going to replace my f of x, which becomes g of 3x squared minus 5x. So now I'm focusing on my g is 8 times x being replaced with 3x squared minus 5x and a plus 1 on the end. Simplifies to be 24x squared minus 40x plus a 1 on the end. There you go. That's golf. Gog. So g of x is going to be g of 8x plus 1. So it's 8, replace the x with 8x plus 1, then a plus 1 on the end. So 64x, 8 times 1 is 8, plus 1, plus 9. Okay, now it's time to deal with the more complicated ones. Starting with fog. F of g of x. Okay, that is f of 8x plus 1. Okay, then I'm going to start writing the setup for f. 3x squared minus 5x. Anywhere I see x, I'm going to replace it with 8x plus 1. So it's actually 3 times 8x plus 1 squared minus 5 times 8x plus 1. Okay, let's move to the top. Anytime you see square, write it twice. So 8x plus 1 times another 8x plus 1. Then the back, I can already simplify. Negative 5 times an 8x is a negative 40x. And then negative 5 times a 1 is a minus 5. There you go. The first part, we have already dealt with things like this in the previous lesson. We can just multiply. So I'm actually going to multiply using the string method. Keep the 3 outside. Inside, we have 8x times 8x, 64x squared. 8x times 1, 8x. And then 1 times 8x is an 8x. 1 times 1 is a 1. Minus 40x minus 5. Multiply the 3 in. That is going to be 192x squared plus 24x plus another 24x plus 3 minus 40x and a minus 5 on the end. That whole thing simplifies to be 192x squared plus 24x minus 40x is going to be a plus 8x, and plus 3 minus 5 is a minus 2 on the end. That's fog. And lastly, we have FOF. Let's go through the process. F of x. So f, and then replace the inside as 3x squared minus 5x. There you go. And now I'm going to focus on f again, but anywhere I see x, I'm going to replace it with 3x squared minus 5x. 3 stays, and then it's 3x squared minus 5x squared minus 5 times 3x squared minus 5x. So the more you do it, as soon as you see a square, you can't kind of skip this step, and you can already write it twice. So it's actually saving you a little bit. So I'm actually going to do that here. Write it twice, 3x squared minus 5x, and then minus a 5 times the 3x squared minus 5x. There you go. But this time, I'm actually going to multiply the 3 in. So it's going to give you a 9x squared minus 15x. I'm just trying to show you all the methods that could make it work. 3x squared minus 5x. The back I can already simplify. It's 5 times 3x squared is a minus 15x squared. Negative 5 times negative 5x is a plus 25x. And since the previous one I used the string method, this one I'm going to use the box method. So 2 by 2, 9x squared, and then negative 15x. And then we have a 3x squared and a negative 5x. Okay, we have 27x to the 4th power with minus 15x cubed, and we have a negative 45x cubed, and eventually a negative 5x times negative 15x is a positive 75x squared. Okay, let's copy everything down. 27x to the 4th minus 15x cubed minus 45x cubed plus 75x squared. Don't forget the back part, minus 15x squared plus 25x. So now you can see why it's getting more complicated, because the powers are getting higher and you still need to square them. Okay, combine like terms, 27x to the 4th power. There are 2 of them that has x cubed, so it's a minus 60x cubed. That's a plus 75x squared minus a 15x squared, so it's a plus 60x squared, and eventually a plus 25x. And that is the final answer for FOF, and that is the last example for this lesson. Thank you.